our second tutorial on using Audacity. This one will focus on what to do if the sound quality that you're using has problems. So there are some different tools you can use to make it sound better. The topics we're going to cover are removing background noise, amplification, changing speed, using the compressor, using the equalizer, and normalizing audio. Now, you don't always have to do all of these things to a sound file. You might only have to do one or two of them. But with this sound file we're going to be working with today, it has a lot of problems, so I'm going to do all of these things to it. So let's open Audacity, and I will import my sound file. Okay, so just looking at it from here, you can see that it's got a lot of problems. You've got part of it's really, really loud, and part of it's really, really quiet. You can see that here. Also, if we zoom in a little bit, we can see that this line here, in between what we're saying, should be a thin line, but it's a thick line. That thick line means that there's a lot of background noise. So let's play that, just that one little bit. So like that. I actually just had a fan in the room when I was recording it to give it that extra background noise. So let's listen to how it sounds right now.
This is my example listening file. It's starting out very loud, and now it's going to be very quiet.
So we got some different problems. We got background noise, volume problems, and also some speed problems, right? Part of it's fast and part of it's quiet. So first thing we want to do, first things before we start messing with anything, is to get rid of as much of that background noise as we can. So the first thing we want to do is we need to get a noise profile. So I want to go in and I'll zoom in a little bit so I can see. This one looks pretty good right here. So I'll select that. You don't need very much. You just need a second or even less than a second. Now, everything that I'm working with today is inside of the effects. So I'll go into the effects. And if we go down here, on my version of Audacity, which is the latest one, it's called noise reduction. On the older one, it is called noise removal, but they work exactly the same way. So I'll go inside noise reduction or noise removal, and it's a two-step process. First, I'll click Get Noise Profile. Now I need to select the whole track. I could either select it manually or just click over here, and then I'll select the whole thing, and I'll go back into the effects again, go to noise reduction or noise removal, and you don't need to change any of these presets, and click OK. And now you can see that bit that we chose is gone, right? So that is quiet now. So that should have applied it to the whole thing. See, it looks much, much flatter, a much narrower line. Okay, so that's step one. Now, so let me hear what that sounds like.
This is my example.
Much better. Got rid of a lot of the hiss. Okay. Now, there are different ways to deal with the volume issues, but because this is such a huge difference, right? This is like so loud that it is causing distortion, and this is so quiet you can barely hear it. I want to select this one. I'm going to make it louder. So this is the quiet part. The way to do that is inside effects again. We'll go to amplify. Okay. With amplify, it will automatically decide how much it can increase the volume without going over the edges, without clipping. Yeah, so it'll look at this. The loudest part of it is this right here. So it'll amplify that all the way out till it touches the edges. So we'll do that. Yeah. Okay. So now you can see this is looking much more similar in volume. That's great. Now, but it's still, so that was amplification. If it were too loud, I could also make it I could also make it quieter by dragging it into the negative instead of the positive. Yeah, let me show you that really fast. So effect, amplify. You can just drag this slider. If I wanted to make it quieter, I could do that. Yeah, but I don't want to. Now, we still have some few problems with volume. You can see that this part is now loud, but this part is still quiet, right? So I could go through and manually choose each one of these little quiet bits and click amplify and amplify those up and go inside this and do the same thing. But especially if you're working with a long file, with a long recording, that's going to take you a really long time. A much easier way to do it is to use a different tool called the compressor. So I'm going to select the whole file again, go up to the effects, yeah, and I'll go to compressor. What the compressor aims to do is to make the loud parts quieter and the quiet parts louder to reduce the dynamic range. And you could change all these sliders and move things around. Like the more you increase the ratio, the more it tries to do that. So the more it will make the sound file be flat. And you can also slide these around. What I read anyway for doing vocals is this -14 and -40 for the threshold and the noise floor seem to work pretty well. So I will do that. Let me move it out of the way so you can see the effect it has on the file. Yeah, okay. So you can see it did that. Now it didn't do it a lot. It could be a little more. Let's do it one more time. So you go Effect. Now your last action that you did will be at the top. So I can just click Repeat Compressor. It'll do it the same way. All right, so now it did it more. That's looking pretty good. So we have dealt with amplification and compression. Now let's think a little bit about the speed. So the first part of this is fast and the second part is slow. If I were doing this for a low-level class, I would want the whole thing to be slow. And if for higher level, of course, I'd want the slow part to be faster. Let's say that I'm working with a low level, and you get this all the time. If you have someone come in and record something for you, and they just speak a little bit too quickly, you can slow them down some. So let's take this part, which is the fast part, and select just that by dragging it, and go up to Effect, and now I can go to Change Speed. Okay, so percent change is negative. That's making it slower. If I made it percent change positive, that would make it faster. Maybe start out with, you don't want to do this too much. If you do it too much, it'll sound terrible. But let's try like 5 to start with, yeah? So we can preview and see what it's going to sound like.
This is my example listening file. It's starting out very loud.
Okay, it sounds a little better. It's still a little bit fast. Let's do 1 more percent. Let's go 6.
This is my example listening file. It's starting out very loud.
Okay, that sounds much better. But you will notice that when I slowed it down, it changed my voice quite a bit, right? It made me sound a lot lower. We don't want that. There is a way to fix that. So we'll go, okay. So now we change the speed. You can see it made it a little longer because it's slower. Let me go up to Effect again, and now I can change the pitch, how high or low it is, right? So I don't know why, but it seems to work pretty well that if you just do the same percent change to pitch that you did to speed, that seems to work out all right. If you remember, I did 6% change on that. So let's do 6% change on the pitch. And preview.
This is my example listening file.
Sounds a bit better. Sounds more like my real voice. So, okay. So that changed the pitch. So now we've got the speed, we've got the volume, right? Everything seems to be okay, but if you'll notice, this thing sounds really tinny and hollow. There are some things that not all listening files will be that way, but because this one was so bad to begin with, it sounds really tinny. So we can change that a little bit by dealing with the equalizer. Oops, what did I just do there? Okay. So if I click over here, I can select the whole thing. Now, this is one of these tools that's a little bit different on the older version than the newer version. So the newer version, this is called Graphic Equalizer. And on the old one, it's called Equalization. And they look different too, but they do the same thing. So Graphic Equalizer. And if I knew about these things, I could just slide these around myself, but I don't. So I'll go to Manage and Factory Presets. Now, I want to do 2 things. I want to make the bass more and the treble more. So I'll go Bass Boost and OK. And then go back in and go Effect, Graphic Equalizer, Manage, Factory Presets, Treble Boost. Okay. Now.
This is my example listening file.
Okay, it sounds a little more full. You maybe can't pick it up from the speakers, but in real life it sounds quite a bit nicer, less hollow. So now I've got one final last thing to do. You can see that the sound is going off the edges here. I've got clipping, which is going to cause distortion. It's going to make it bad. So an easy way to get rid of that is this step you do last. Do this after you've done all the other things. Is to go into Effect and to normalize it. And again, this is dealing with trying to equalize things. So I'll go, and you want to keep this as at a -1. You don't need to change that. and go, okay, so now that's made it about like this. So we're not like peeking out and hurting the edges. So we can see, let's kind of play it.
It's starting out very loud, and now it's going to be very quiet.
You can see, so now this sound file is really looking a lot better. My final step here would be to export it. And so I go up here to File, and export as MP3, and we'll change this to better. Okay. And that's it. Now, again, you won't have to do all of these things all the time, but these are a few different tools that you can use to try and make your audio file sound better.